Final Fantasy fans are all desperate for the next update on Final Fantasy XVI. In fact, if I have to wear this clown suit one more time, I'm pretty sure it's not going to come off. Like, it's just going to be permanently stuck to my skin. Luckily, I think we won't be waiting too much longer until we get the next major Final Fantasy XVI update. In fact, I know we won't be waiting too long because Yoshi P has promised a new update this spring. The only issue is that spring can mean from now all the way through June 20th. However, there's now something to suggest that things could be happening sooner rather than later. And though this update is weird, I'm sure you'll be able to see my reasoning for why I think this is the case. And if you find this update to be interesting, be sure to hit that subscribe button so we can reach our goal of 90k subscribers by the end of the year. Japanese clothing brand Uniqlo will be helping Square Enix promote the 35th anniversary of Final Fantasy. And in doing so, they'll be offering t-shirts for Final Fantasy 1 through 16. You might be thinking, oh, cool, well, what does that have to do with Final Fantasy 16 coming anytime soon? Well, let's look closely at this shirt here. The shirt's design is not exactly the highest resolution in this image. However, you can clearly make out Clive on the shirt, and next to it text that says Final Fantasy 16, followed by some other text that cannot be made out. But of course, that's not actually the big thing about this design, both figuratively and literally. If you look behind Clive, there appears to be a new never-before-seen icon. It's really hard to make out, but judging by its silhouette and its draconian wing shape, it feels like it's safe to say that this might be Final Fantasy XVI's version of Bahamut. I thought maybe this could be Phoenix at first, but if you look at those wings, there are no feathers on them. This is definitely a dragon of sorts. Initially, I thought this was Bahamut, but when comparing it to this screenshot in particular, I realized this was actually Ifrit. Look closely at the sort of roar that Ifrit is doing. The shape of their mouth is the same here, and so is the hook of the horns. While this could be Bahamut or any other icon, I think it's safe to say, given what we know about the story, that this is Ifrit, however you want to pronounce it. However, this is where things get even more interesting. This listing went live for a couple of hours last night, and then soon thereafter got taken down. The only reason that this listing would get taken down is if, obviously, it wasn't supposed to go live yet. And they were taking pre-orders for the shirt, so I doubt it was a supply issue. So it seems vastly more likely that this got taken down early because this Final Fantasy XVI design was not supposed to go live yet. In fact, it's really one of the only reasonable conclusions that I can personally think of. But that's not all. These pre-orders were being taken up till the end of April according to the original page, and obviously being distributed sometime after April. But if they were going to be taking pre-orders for these shirts now, and assuming that that pre-order window is correct, that means to me that this design is going to be available in some official capacity before April. At least that's my theory on it based on what we're seeing here. Please take this with a grain of salt, as this is just my theory based on the evidence that's being presented. And don't crawl down my throat if it doesn't happen, as I think I'm just trying to make a reasonable prediction based on the evidence here. However, it does seem to all make sense. And if this is true, this is not the first time a fashion brand has leaked something major about a Final Fantasy title. 6 years ago, in March of 2013, happening 3 months before E3 2013, clothing brand Rowan listed they had done clothing designs for Final Fantasy XV, a title that was not yet announced and was currently known as Final Fantasy Versus 13. This essentially leaked that Final Fantasy Versus 13 was going to become Final Fantasy 15 months early. And at the time, they claimed this was a mistake. Yeah, it was a mistake to reveal it early, not the information. All of this is to suggest that Final Fantasy 16 is indeed coming soon. As you guys know, I am a massive fan of Creative Business Unit 3 and what they do. And I truly believe that you can 100% put your trust in this team, put your trust in Yoshida, and they are going to make something incredible. But those are just my thoughts on it. Please subscribe and comment below where you think this is all leading up to. Shout out to patron Tim Rogers and the rest of the Ultima community.